Welcome back to IELTS Band 9 with Maria. Today's lesson is about how to ace and how to get Band 9 in speaking section. In IELTS speaking section, there are three parts. In part 1, examiners are asking the candidates about themselves, if they are students or if they work, which is part 1. And then they also give them 2 more topics randomly out of 15 topics to talk, which can be about studying, working, their hometown, what they do in their free time, holidays, places to go in the free time, transportation, shopping, your neighborhood, reading, and sports and games. So basically, those 15 topics that examiners select 2 for each candidate will assess the candidates how well they speak in IELTS. So what you're supposed to do in part 1, you should not stop speaking. That's a little secret that I'm sharing with you, and I hope this helps you. When you start talking, you should follow 3 steps. Answer each question that the examiner is asking you, provide an example, and provide a reason. For example, if the examiner is asking you questions about your full name, you don't stop talking. You stop talking only the moment that the examiner says, thank you. So the moment you hear thank you, stop. And don't worry, your score is not going to get affected by your interruption, because any candidate who can speak in long pattern is a great candidate. Therefore, my suggestion is for you to get IELTS Band 9 in speaking section. Keep your speech long and steady. Make sure in your conversation your sentences are not only simple sentences. You should use connectors such as and, or, but, so, yet, for. And for example, if the examiner is asking you, could you tell me your full name, please? You can provide your full name, like Jane Smith, and I am from this specific city. I am from Toronto, and I lived in downtown Toronto, and I'm a student. So you keep continuing your speech long and steady. That's about the first part. When the examiner, for example, is asking you the next part, another question, what are you studying? Don't just simply say, I study psychology. You can simply say, psychology is one of my favorite topics. I have decided to go to this course in last 2 years, and I'm studying psychology. And because I have been graduated from this school, so keep answering the question by providing the reason. The reason, so always say why you're studying and always give an example. If the examiner is asking you what's your major, don't say mathematics. You can simply say, my major is mathematics because I was so talented and my teachers in high school notified me that I have some talents in math. Therefore, I decided to go to math major and continue this major. For example, few of my friends, as you can see, who are not good in math, I was ready to help them in high school. So you see, my speech is somewhat longer than the normal speech. Always answer the question, provide the reason, provide an example. So go through these few steps. If the examiner is asking you about your work, even if you don't work and you're a student, you can say, my job as a student is. So do not leave any question without the answer of, I don't know, or I'm confused, because the moment you don't answer the question, your marks will drop. Examiners are trained to mark the candidates based on how long their language is, the sentences that they make, and the coherence and conjunction. And make sure when you speak, try to show your enthusiasm and excitement about any question that you answer. For example, if I ask you, what do you do for a living? You can say, as of this the beginning of this year, I started studying, therefore I consider myself as a student, and that is my job. One of the things that I do as a student, I love tutoring other students in mathematics. And once per week, students who are not very strong, they go to writing center and they ask for other students who are better in mathematics, and they ask me to provide them help. So you see, my language is long sentences provided with like good conjunction and connectors and so on. Any question that the examiner is asking you, answer the question, provide the reason, provide an example. So never ever just simply give an like just answer the question simply. Keep your answers long, make your sentences complex and compound. If the examiner is asking you about your town, and these questions are the official questions, so more than welcome to review them. These are absolutely official questions. This website that I always share with the students is one of the British Council official websites. They recently changed the face of this website, and they keep making it updated. So if the examiner is asking you about study, keep your answers long. If the examiner is asking you about work, if you're working even as part-time work, more than welcome to share that, but keep your answers long. About your hometown, add many, many details. If the examiner is asking you, can you describe your hometown to me or village to me? Try to be descriptive. Talk about the system of transportation in your hometown. Talk about how the economy is going. Is farming popular in your hometown? Or if the local small businesses are running the economy of that town? Or what is your town famous for? Or for example, what kind of food is the best food in your town? So keep your answers long, make it exciting, and make it profound, basically. If the examiner is asking you, tell me something about your hometown, don't simply say, oh, I live in Toronto and Toronto is a business capital. Keep your answers long. There are many, many businesses in Toronto. There is a subway line in Toronto. I live downtown Toronto, for example, and so on. And keep your answers more complex by adding conjunctions. When you want to keep your answers long and exciting, as I mentioned, like answering the question, providing a reason and provide an example, use conjunctions. So you can say, however, Toronto is a busy city, or you can say, moreover, in Toronto, there are different nationalities who are living, and so on and so forth. So by using conjunction, your mark will be one band higher. If I am band 5 and I use conjunction and, or, and so, by adding however, more, therefore, consequently, all these conjunctions that I have it in one of my videos, that you're more than welcome to watch other videos that I have in my channel, and subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe for more, because I have new lessons every day, and follow and comment, and I'd be happy to share more videos. If you have suggestions, you can simply ask me, Maria, I need this video to be recorded, so I try to give you the lesson about the specific topic that you're interested in learning. Going back to the questions that the examiners are asking, they ask you about your free time. For example, if the examiner is asking you, what do you enjoy doing in your free time? Don't say playing basketball. Don't answer with one word. Answer with complete sentences. Always provide a reason. Always provide an example. One of those free time activities that I absolutely enjoy doing is running. I'm a runner. I have had a chance to participate in marathon running in last 5 years. I have been trained and I learned. So you see, my language is long. By joining those running rooms, I have learned how to run 5 kilometers, and then I added up more kilometers to 10 kilometer, 15 kilometer, and so on and so forth. So when you answer, try to use conjunctions. When you answer, try to keep your answers exciting, try to continue your speech. But the moment that the examiner says, thank you, is the moment that you should stop. And don't panic, because your mark is not going to get affected by it. The examiner is trying to challenge the candidate. Therefore, when we say thank you, it means we want to challenge the candidate with a new topic, okay? Part one is pretty straightforward. All part one answers must be about you, your family, something that you know about around you. It's not more general. Part one is all about you, what you study, your free time, the holidays, the places that you go in your free time, about the transportation, about shopping, about your neighborhood. My suggestion is practice answering each question with a friend of yours and record yourself, time yourself, and make sure your answers are long. But for each question, you should answer the question, provide a reason, and provide an example. Vocabulary, good vocabulary usage that I have in my other videos, more than welcome to follow those other videos. Watch those videos to learn what kind of vocabulary you need to use. Collocation, I posted few of those collocation videos. Make sure you follow and you comment on the collocation videos as well. Collocation is important. Good vocabulary is important. Conjunction connectors are important in your speaking and your writing, of course, but we're talking, this video is only about the speaking section. Therefore, make sure that you add those details to your speech as well. So the examiner is asking you about your neighborhood. Make sure you have good collocation, good vocabulary, answer the question, provide the reason, provide an example. The examiner is asking you about reading. So even before the examiner asks, do you enjoy reading? Why? Before the examiner says why, you can simply say because quickly, or since, or for. The reason is. So keep your answers exciting by providing the reason, adding conjunction, adding good vocabulary, adding good collocation. The examiner might ask you about sports and games in part one. Part two of the speaking, so part one basically is 4 to 5 minutes. It takes 4 to 5 minutes. You don't need to be worried about the time because the examiner is taking care of everything. You just need to follow the lead of the examiner. The examiner is simply asking you a question and you need to follow the step-by-step of what the examiner is asking you. Part 2 and 3 is a little bit different. Part 2 is still a topic about you, but is more challenging because you should be able to speak for 2 minutes. The questions that are asked, they're different topics, and the topic cards are similar to what I'm showing in here to you. The topic cards are given to the candidates with a piece of paper and a pencil. You can write on that piece of paper. The examiner will give you 1 minute to take notes. And my suggestion is please take notes because your mind and your thoughts will be organized. The question is asking you, for example, describe a beautiful place to visit in your country. You should say, where is it, how to get there, what there is to do when you're there, and explain why you recommend this place. Remember something, when the examiner is asking you, you have 1 minute to think about your answer. When you take notes, you should answer all these questions that are given in here. If one question is missing in answering, when you answer in those 2 minutes, your mark will be penalized. Your mark will be shorter than band 9. It's very easy to get band 9 by practicing. I am planning to add more live speaking practice videos. Keep your eyes on my channel. Suggest my channel to your friends who are taking the IELTS test, because this is the official IELTS channel that I created as the examiners plan to train the candidates in official questions. To be ready, so make sure that you follow them to do that. Good vocabulary practices in each question that you answer. Your speech should be 2 minutes. To speak 2 minutes at times is challenging for the candidates because they say, oh, I just answer all these questions and 2 minutes is too long. If you answer each question by giving the answer, give the reason and the example, each bullet point, your answer will be long enough. Add more details to each of these questions that are asked. Part two, whatever the topic is in part two is about you, you can talk about yourself, no problem. In part one, the topics are about you. You can say I, you can say your family, you can say your friends. But in part three, forgot to mention, in part two, you have 1 minute to take notes. You have 2 minutes to talk. It's 3 to 4 minutes speaking time. Part one is 4 to 5 minutes. Part two is 3 to 4 minutes. And part three is 4 to 5 minutes again. The length of the speaking test is 11 to 14 minutes. Then again, I'm just training the students in details of the speaking section. You don't need to be worried about the timing, but it's good to know that you need to keep your answers long. So part one and part two, they're both about the candidate's life. You can use I, you can use the first person pronoun, you can talk about your life, your family, your friends. Part three, however, the topics are more general. You cannot talk about yourself in part three. And the interesting part is whatever the topic is about in part two, part three is similar to part two question. For example, in here, if they say talk about the place to visit in your country, part three is about tourism, the places to visit in a country. But in part two, you were talking about your own country. In part three, what you need to do is compare cultures, compare and contrast nationalities, compare and contrast countries, compare and contrast genders, compare and contrast different places and so on. So for example, if the question is, why do you think people like to travel to different places in their free time? You can generally talk about, for example, European countries that are close and people can hop on the train and they can visit this country and that country over an hour, half an hour, and so on, and why people enjoy traveling. By traveling, people learn, visiting different places, meeting new cultures, or maybe socializing with new friends, as well as trying different cuisines. So the sky's the limit. Use your creativity, use your imagination, add more details to it, but do not talk about yourself, because part three is designed for the candidates to elaborate the answers in a way longer than part two, and the examiner is asking questions to know if the candidate is band 7, band 5, or band 9. In order to get band 9, you need to have good collocation, good vocabulary. Watch my collocation videos in my channel. Make sure that you comment and you create examples, make and do some of those exercises that are prepared in the collocation. I have 5 videos on their collocation, how to create collocation, what is collocation, and so on. So it is extremely important for your speaking section to have that collocation, to review those collocation videos. And also in part three, when you answer the questions, give the example and give the reason. Keep your answers long. Don't say that's it. Don't say that's all. Continue your answers long, and the examiner will interrupt you if it is necessary. In part three, the examiner will is supposedly asking, there are 3 parts, there are 3 sections. You don't see the questions. In part 1, part 3, you don't see the question. Only in part 2, you can have the card. The examiner will give you the card. In part 3, the examiner is asking you one of these sets. The first set is asking you, and then she's choosing either set 2 or set 3. Set 2 is for the candidates who are lower than band 7, and set 3 is for the candidates who are higher band 7. So basically, as you see the questions are more challenging. If I'm asking about the attitudes towards tourism in set 1, in set 2, I say, why is it important to protect the countryside and so on, conserving the countryside. And in part 3, the challenging topics could be about the buildings and monuments. So is not a test of knowledge, it's a test of language. Don't worry about, oh, maybe I don't know about some topics. That's fine, as long as you can keep your answers long and grammatically complete and strong. Good grammar, good conjunction, good collocation, good vocabulary, good structure, and non-stop talking. Something else that the students and the candidates need to know is avoid fillers like well, you know, stuff like that, things like that. These are called fillers. Fillers, I always say, they're killers in this in the language. Basically, the candidates who are pausing too long and the candidates who are using fillers, they're definitely lower than band 7. Most universities are asking most top universities are asking for band 7, 7.5, or band 8, band 9. If you want to be a teacher, they're asking for band 9. And if you want, for example, to be an examiner, they're asking for band 9. So part 3, the third set that the examiner, you don't see these questions when you're taking the test, but hey, you have tons of practices in here, which is, these are the official questions, but these are the recycled questions. Recycled question means the candidate can see the practice exercises. So if you practice all these, you're going to be more confident in the real test. So the examiner might ask you about the third part, historic building and monument. Why are historic buildings and monuments important to a city? You can talk about they attract more tourism, for example, because they're considered as the heritage part of that country. And my suggestion is this website is available to you for free. Review all these answers. And if you don't have knowledge about some of these questions, why not Googling it? Google this and read a little bit about that. The more you read, the better you can create more interesting and improvise better answers in the speaking section. Or if the examiner is asking you, is it better to keep old buildings or build new modern ones? You can have your personal opinion, of course, but do not rely on saying, I think, I believe that much. You can say, from my personal perspective, I would consider the old buildings should be in a country because should be kept and conserved because they are considered as a history of that country. And for example, the Wall of China and is very important, and it brings more tourist attraction and is a part of the history of that country. It makes people interested in that land. Modern buildings, for example, in Dubai, UAE, there are lots of modern buildings that can be designed and they somehow commercialize architecturing and interesting technology or engineering. So the sky is the limit, and you can talk about everything as long as it is not about you in part 3. Make sure part 3, you compare, contrast, you use pros and cons, merits, demerits, advantages, disadvantages, but it's more generic. It's talking about different cultures, different countries, different seasons, if the topic is appropriate. If your part 2 is about family, the question is asking about you, the person that you admire. This is one of the new questions, if you didn't know, in IELTS. You can talk about your mother, your father, your someone in your family that you admire, and answer the question. But then part 3, when they say attitude towards family, you can talk about different families, or maybe the example that comes to your mind, the first thing is about your family, but then avoid saying I in part 3, because part 3 is all about making sure that you have better sense of how things are in general. So part 1, once again, part 1 in IELTS is 4 to 5 minutes. Part 2 is 3 to 4 minutes. And part 3 is 4 to 5 minutes again. Speaking examination can be practiced over my other videos that I posted in my channel. And make sure you review other videos about the speaking, and also make sure that you follow those collocation and vocabulary. In here also, when you click on vocabulary for IELTS, you will see that there are some vocabulary that is given for part 2 speaking. As you can see, I like this because the topics are interesting and it's very practical for the students to do a better job in comparing contrasting vocabulary, idiom vocabulary. You can have idiomatic expression. It is helping you in your writing, in your speaking as well, and the collocation in other videos that I posted. Make sure you subscribe to this video and follow me for more videos. See you next time.